Did you ever pause to think about the quiet ways our daily choices shape the world around us in 2025? A subtle but profound shift is unfolding in Canada, one that's barely making headlines but is changing how people connect with American brands. No protests, no slogans. Just a steady, almost invisible turning away. Big names like Walmart and McDonald's are feeling the impact, sales slipping, stores closing, jobs lost. But beneath these numbers lies something deeper, a rethinking of loyalty, identity, and trust. Many might not notice this change at first glance, but it's there in the aisles, in the cups of coffee, in the conversations at kitchen tables. In this video, we still explore 5 American brands facing real challenges in Canada and what their struggles reveal about a shifting relationship between two neighbors, once thought inseparable. Stay with us till the end, because understanding this quiet transformation might change the way we see more than just business. Let's begin. McDonald's, no speeches, no slogans, no shouting in the streets, just silence and empty booths. That's how Canadians made their point. They didn't stage protests outside McDonald's. They simply stopped going. Across the country, dining rooms once packed with laughter and the smell of fries now sit eerily quiet. And while no one said it out loud, the message echoed louder than any boycott sign ever could. Canadians had made a choice. In the wake of rising tariffs and growing tensions in 2025, a quiet consumer revolt began. McDonald's, a symbol of American fast food culture, was one of the first names quietly added to the unspoken list of not today, maybe never again. According to its Q3 earnings report, McDonald's Canada revenue fell by 16%. The sharpest drops came from the country's beating hearts. Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary. But this wasn't set just about business. PV, in cities like Ottawa and Halifax, local eateries are booming, some reporting a 40% increase in weekend sales. On Saturdays, some restaurants now turn away customers, simply overwhelmed by the demand. What's happening isn't just a boycott. It's a quiet cultural awakening in households across the country. Children are learning that a meal isn't just about filling your stomach, it's about feeding your values. Many McDonald's locations in Canada are franchises owned by local families, paying local taxes, hiring local staff, so when customers walk away, it's not just an American corporation feeling the sting, it's the community next door. This isn't just about food anymore, it's about identity, about belonging, and about the invisible choices that reveal what a society truly values. So, what is a burger worth? Is it just a $1 menu snack? A convenience? A taste of nostalgia? Or is it something more? Because right now, in homes across Canada, parents and children are deciding that answer for themselves, one meal at a time. And what started with drive-thrus and hash browns is now spilling over into shampoo bottles, cereal boxes, clothing tags. A quiet revolution happening not in headlines, but at the checkout counter. And it sits just getting started. Coca-Cola. It used to be everywhere. A cold Coke poured over ice, fizzing under the summer sun, in stadiums, theaters, lunchboxes, and drive-thrus. It wasn't just a drink, it was America in a bottle. But in 2025, that red can start to disappear from Canadian hands. Not because it lost its taste, but because it lost something deeper: trust. There were no viral campaigns, no protests in the streets. Just a quiet decision. One by one, Canadians started choosing something else. Not sweeter, not cheaper, just closer to home. PV. And then it spread. A movie theater in Toronto posted a handwritten sign, "Coke-free zone." A university in Vancouver emptied every vending machine and filled them with local names. Upscale restaurants in Montreal added a note to their drink menu: "We don't serve Coke." The stats followed. Coca-Cola Sips revenue in Canada dropped 27% in Q2 of 2025. Meanwhile, local soda brands, Canada Dry, 1642 Cola, and even craft fizzy drinks from tiny towns in Prince Edward Island and Quebec saw their sales double. Coca-Cola moved fast. They tried to win back hearts with a Northern Lights edition, a patriotic rebrand wrapped in maple leaf colors with a splash of syrupy sweetness. But the effort felt too late. You can change the label, but not what people feel. PV. And for Coca-Cola, a brand that once symbolized joy, connection, and Americana, it became something else. A litmus test. A question whispered across dinner tables and corner stores. Can a sip of soda betray your sense of identity? And how far would you go to support something that feels more like you? The answer didn't come with fanfare. It came in quiet moments when someone reached for something local, even if they still craved the old familiar taste. Because this movement isn't just about what's refreshing, it's about what feels right. So ask yourself, have you ever changed a daily habit because your heart told you to, not your wallet, not your tongue, but something deeper? If you have, share your story. Because right now, across this country, people are making those small but powerful choices every day. And the biggest surprise? It's not just about soda anymore. It's about every aisle, every shelf, every brand that used to feel untouchable. The ripple has only begun. Walmart in a quiet town just outside Ottawa, the first signs of change weren't loud. There were no protests, no angry signs, just a subtle shift, one shopping cart at a time. After the US slapped heavy tariffs on Canadian goods in 2025, something inside many Canadians turned. It wasn't rage, it was resolved. They didn't wait for press conferences. They didn't wait for leaders to speak. They simply stopped going to Walmart. According to the Canadian Retail Statistics Bureau, traffic to Walmart nosedive by 31% in just 8 weeks. In provinces like British Columbia and Quebec, store sales plummeted so sharply that shelves began staying full and parking lots sat nearly empty. But this wasn't about punishing a brand. It was about reclaiming control. One family, one purchase, one quiet act at a time. The Shop Canadian First movement began as a whisper on social media, and within weeks it exploded. Hashtags, stories, tutorials on how to find homegrown products. People started turning to small neighborhood grocers, regional supermarkets like Loblaws and Metro, and weekend farmers markets that once struggled for foot traffic. TV. Local grocers began hiring again, adding weekend shifts just to keep up. In some towns, delivery trucks for local produce doubled their routes. A startup app called True North Market, which helps people find nearby Canadian-owned stores, crossed 1 million downloads in less than 2 months. This wasn't just shopping anymore. It was personal, it was political, and it was powerful. Because sometimes the most radical form of protest is where you choose to spend your $8.99. You could call it patriotism. You could call it pride. Or maybe it's just the quiet comfort of knowing that your dollar stays in the soil you stand on. So now, a question for you. Have you ever stood at the edge of a decision like that? On one side, convenience. On the other, conviction. One side offers a low price. The other offers the high ground. Have you ever walked away from the easier choice because your heart asked you to? If so, we'd love to hear it. Because behind every cart, every bag of groceries, every checkout line, there's a story worth telling. And this is only the beginning. Amazon, and in the next past, a giant begins to wobble, not with headlines, not with fury, but with a quiet resolve that moved from one household to the next. For years, Amazon stood as the unshakable titan of online convenience, an empire built in speed, scale, and simplicity. You needed it? It showed up at your door. No questions, no delays, just Prime. But 2025 changed everything. When the US expanded its tariffs under Section 301, Canadian buyers noticed something unsettling. Prices crept up, delivery times dragged, and beneath every package, there was a growing sense of discomfort, a feeling that their dollars were propping up a system that no longer felt fair. There were no angry boycotts, just fatigue, quiet exits, one subscription at a time. According to the Canada E-commerce Association, Amazon Prime cancellations surged by 24% in just the first 2 months of 2025. And in that same window, local alternatives began to bloom. Platforms like Well.k, Book City, and Etsy Canada reported record traffic. Suddenly, neighborhood shops that had fought to survive during the pandemic were thriving again. It wasn't about politics, it was about proximity, about rediscovering a sense of community in the aisles of stores you can walk to. From those simple, deliberate choices, a quiet revolution grew. Apps like Local Loop began connecting shoppers with merchants down the street. People started sharing spreadsheets of Canadian-made products, posting reviews of mom-and-pop stores, and even organizing buy local weekends with their neighbors. It was no longer about finding the cheapest option. It was about finding the right one. But as with any cultural shift, the ripple came with collateral. An Amazon warehouse operator in British Columbia, whose facility once employed nearly 200 people, had to cut hours. "We understand why people are leaving," he said. "But when they go, they don't just hurt the company. They hurt families like mine who live here, who work here, who depend on those orders to put food on the table." It's the contradiction of consumer power. When you stand for something, sometimes someone else has to sit down. So the question becomes, how do we balance value with values? Can we shop responsibly without hurting the people who serve us from the other end of the supply chain? Do you remember the last time you visited a store where someone smiled and asked how your day was? Do you remember what it felt like to recognize and be recognized? Because sometimes an add to cart button doesn't just move a product, it moves a boundary. Between global convenience and local resilience, between automation and human connection. So if you're still with us, thank you. This journey is just beginning. Hit subscribe if these stories make you think twice. Leave a comment if you've ever made a purchase that wasn't about the price, but about something deeper, something personal, something moral, something worth sharing. And hold on, because the biggest story in this silent shift is still ahead. Starbucks in just 1 month. Canadians quietly brought down an American icon. No protests, no broken windows, just a simple, deliberate act, changing where they buy coffee. For years, Starbucks was more than a coffee shop. It was a symbol of routine, of aspiration, of the middle-class hustle. From Toronto to Vancouver, people lined up not just for caffeine, but for comfort, until something shifted. It began in April 2025, when the U.S. government abruptly raised tariffs on Canadian imports under a policy expansion that blindsided both economists and everyday consumers. And Canadians, instead of taking to the streets, chose something quieter. They stopped buying American coffee. The #boycott Starbucks started to trend on X like a spark catching dry grass. But this wasn't just an online moment, it was real. According to Starbucks' Q2 2025 report, revenue in Canada fell by 22%. Locations that once buzzed with laptops and espresso shots suddenly sat still. PV. This isn't just a story about switching brands. It sets about values, about identity, about belonging. Across cities from Vancouver to Montreal, a grassroots movement surged. Independent coffee shops, long overlooked, saw sales triple in a matter of weeks. Some were so overwhelmed by the influx that they expanded hours, hired new staff, and even ran out of beans. And then came the breakout hit. Maple Roast, a Canadian-made app designed to help users find independent coffee shops. By the end of May, it had over 2 million downloads. The message? Canadians aren't just buying coffee anymore, they're buying integrity. They're choosing local stories over global branding, and they're saying, without shouting, we matter. But of course, every revolution has its costs. A 28-year-old barista in Quebec, whose Starbucks location recently reduced shifts, offered a sobering reminder.
I get it. I really do.
But most of us are behind the counter. We're just trying to pay rent. We're not the ones making international trade policies. It's the dilemma at the heart of ethical consumerism. How do you protest a system without hurting the people caught inside it? Is it possible to push back against global powerhouses without crushing the workers just trying to make it through the month? So now, the question isn't just which brand you'll boycott, it's how you'll do it, and what you're willing to risk or protect in the process. Because if you think Starbucks is the biggest name to fall, wait until you see number 5. A brand so embedded in the American identity that its collapse at the northern border is nothing short of historic, frozen, rejected, and quietly erased, right where it thought it was safest. You once said believe it, Nike's. Next up, a name that once felt harmless, even empowering, now finds itself on the front lines of a cultural standstill. There was a time when slipping on a pair of Nikes didn't just mean choosing shoes, it meant choosing to drive, choosing a story. It meant choosing just do it and believing it was a philosophy, not just a tagline. But in 2025, something shifted. Canadians, once proud to lace up the swoosh, started choosing not to do it anymore. At least, not with Nike. After a wave of tariffs from the US targeting Canadian exports, the boycott tide rolled in. It began with groceries and cars. Then quietly, almost tenderly, it reached our closets. And just like that, Nike Sip's glow began to fade. According to Retail Insight Canada, Nike sales in Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia dropped between 18 to 22% in Q2 2025. At the same time, a new kind of footwear found its footing. Local brands like Vessi or startup labels crafting sneakers from recycled plastic and salvaged rubber reported double-digit growth, not because they had the biggest ads, but because they had something Nike lost: alignment. PV. This isn't about fashion anymore. It's about conscious identity. It's about asking, what does the logo I wear say about me? The Buy with Meaning movement has taken root, especially among the young. And to support it, tools are emerging. An app called Tread Right, which scores brands based on ethics, sustainability, and supply chain transparency, hit over 800,000 downloads in just 6 weeks. The message is clear. If a pair of shoes can speak, Canadians want theirs to say something true, something local, something that doesn't feel like blind allegiance. Nike still exists, but in Canada it's running without a crowd, without applause, without purpose. And that raises a question: have you ever stopped supporting a brand because its message no longer reflected who you are? Was there a moment, subtle, personal, when you looked at what you bought and asked, why am I still buying this? Share your story in the comments. Because sometimes one person changing direction is all it takes to show others the path forward. And up next, a brand so deeply woven into North American culture, you'd think nothing could touch it. But in 2025, even this titan finds itself shrinking, losing, not to noise, but to silence. You'd still want to see it. Harley Davidson. The next symbol roared louder than most, and when it finally fell silent, Canadians realized just how much loyalty really means. Harley Davidson. More than a motorcycle, it was a legend, an anthem of freedom, rebellion, and raw power echoing down open highways. For years, it wasn't just a brand, it was a way of life. But in 2025, everything changed. No one imagined the boycott wave would reach this giant, the revered titan of the biker world. Yet with new tariffs biting hard, Canadians began to turn away from even this emblem of independence. In just 3 months, Harley-Davidson's Canadian sales plunged over 35%. Dealerships in Alberta and Saskatchewan shuttered temporarily, some never to reopen. Meanwhile, rivals like the British Triumph and Italian Ducati roared ahead, filling the gap left behind. A seasoned rider from Manitoba, who once dreamed of a cross-country journey on his Harley, confessed, "I bought that bike the day I retired. It was my dream, my freedom on 2 wheels. But now, every time I take it out, I don't feel the pride I used to." After weeks of hesitation, he listed the bike for sale. But the calls never came. In Vancouver, a group of bikers made a statement. No engines revving, no thunderous exhausts, just a silent parade of Canadian-made electric motorcycles. Quiet but powerful, it was a rejection louder than any roar. Across rural Canada, Harley mechanics faced a 60% drop in business. Some adapted, crafting farming tools instead of tuning engines. Others simply closed their doors. What happens when a symbol of freedom turns its back on those who once worshipped it? Do we hold on to it for nostalgia's sake, or do we let it go because it no longer stands for who we are? We often own things not just for what they do, but for what they mean. But when that meaning shifts, when the story changes, do we keep them out of love, out of habit, or out of fear of letting go? Have you ever walked away from something you cherished because it no longer reflected who you are? If so, share your story with us. Because sometimes breaking up is its own kind of love, from roaring motorcycles to quiet sneakers. Canada's silent rebellion is clear. This is a turning back, a refusal to settle for less than what we believe in. Pizza Hut. There was something almost magical about stepping into a Pizza Hut as a kid. The warm glow of dim yellow lighting, the deep red booths hugging every corner, the classic checkerboard tablecloths, and that unmistakable scent of fresh, buttery pan pizza wafting from the kitchen. For a whole generation, Pizza Hut was more than just a place to eat. It was the backdrop for birthday parties, post-game celebrations, and Friday night dinners where laughter echoed louder than the clatter of plates. Pizza Hut wasn't set. Just pizza, a cozy corner of American life wrapped in comfort and familiarity, a place where time seemed to slow down just enough to savor the moment. But that feeling? It sits fading fast. By 2025, the story looks very different. The dine-in Pizza Huts, once a neighborhood staple, are disappearing at an alarming rate. Between 2017 and 2024, over 1,500 Pizza Hut locations shuttered their doors across the country. In states like Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, once dotted with red-roofed Pizza Huts on every block, only a handful of takeout counters remain, struggling to hold on. What went wrong? Simply put, Pizza Hut stopped moving forward, while Domino Sits rose to dominance, revolutionizing pizza delivery with slick apps and lightning-fast service. And nimble newcomers like Blaze and MOD Pizza reinvented the game with customizable, fresh-made pies ready in minutes. Pizza Hut found itself stuck in the middle, neither fully embracing delivery tech nor maintaining its old-school dine-in charm. Its subs drifting without a clear identity. Big sit-down restaurants are costly to run. Combine that with creeping rents, slowing foot traffic, and an outdated business model, and you get a recipe for decline. The menu, once famous for its stuffed crust and pan pizzas, now feels like a relic. Today, SEP's pizza lovers crave choice. Cauliflower crusts, spicy kick, gluten-free dough, vegan cheese. But Pizza Hut still clings to combo deals and nostalgia as if that sippin's enough. Where competitors sprint ahead with sleek apps, on-demand delivery, and lean operations, Pizza Hut lags behind. Its takeout feels like an afterthought. Its marketing tired and uninspired. and the family-friendly atmosphere that made it a go-to faded into memory. For many, Pizza Hut was the easy choice, the reliable comfort zone. It's the fallback option, the better-than-cold leftovers spot you settle for, not the place you crave. The brand that once built memories beneath those iconic red roofs now relies on coupons pushed through emails, hoping someone still cares. Without bold, fearless reinvention, not just of the menu but of the entire experience, Pizza Hut will continue to shrink, quietly, like a forgotten slice left cooling on the counter, losing its flavor bit by bit. Popeyes, and then came the surprise underdog, Popeyes Canada, caught in the crossfire of a boycott that no one saw coming. For years, Popeyes was just the go-to spot for crispy chicken and spicy flavors, a comfort food beacon across Canadian cities. It wasn't flashy, but it was reliable, a taste that brought people together. But 2025 changed everything. When tariffs on Canadian exports hit hard, consumers started rethinking more than just their wallets. They began questioning loyalty, values, and where their money truly belonged. And even Popeyes, a beloved American fast food chain, felt the chill. Sales plummeted by nearly 28% nationwide in just a few months. Lines grew shorter, tables emptier. Local chicken joints and independent eateries suddenly found themselves in the spotlight, bursting with new customers eager to support homegrown flavors. A 34-year-old nurse from Calgary, who admits to being a Popeyes regular, explained her choice. "I loved their chicken, no doubt. But now, when I go out, I want to know I sit them helping keep my community alive, not fueling tariffs that hurt us." In response, some Popeyes locations had to reduce hours or even close temporarily, leaving employees anxious about their future. A manager in Toronto said quietly, "It sits tough because we sits are just people trying to work, but we get why customers are upset." Meanwhile, neighborhood chicken shacks, from small family-run spots to local chains, reported record sales. The appetite for Canadian comfort food was more than just hunger. It was pride. If a simple meal can become a statement, what does your next order say about you? Have you swapped a favorite fast food spot for a local alternative? What pushed you to make that choice? Drop your story below, because sometimes even the smallest decisions, like where to grab your next meal, can echo across communities and redefine loyalty. KFC. Food isn't just about flavor. It's about memories, family dinners, celebrations, the comfort of familiarity. But what happens when the taste stays the same, yet something deeper changes? Let's talk about KFC. For many Canadians, KFC was more than just fried chicken. It was the crackle of the box opening, the unmistakable smell of crispy golden skin, and those messy, crumb-covered fingers that came with every bite. It was family gatherings, late-night snacks, and comfort wrapped in a bucket. But by the summer of 2025, that once familiar dish began to lose its hold, quietly, without fanfare. A recent report from the Canadian Food Service Monitor revealed something telling. KFC sets revenue plunged over 19% in Ontario and Alberta during Q2 2025. Meanwhile, homegrown chains like Mary Brown's and Chester's, along with a growing number of local artisan fried chicken shops, were booming. Neighborhoods that once reached for the bucket from Kentucky started seeking out small, independent joints run by Canadians. The Local Bites app, which helps users discover local restaurants, saw a staggering 540% surge in searches between May and July alone. The chicken hasn't changed its flavor, but Canadian sits' hearts have shifted. In this quiet revolution, the act of eating has transformed from simply enjoying a taste to making a statement, a choice that carries meaning. The feeling of eating with a clear conscience, supporting local hands and dreams, has started to outweigh the comfort of the familiar. If even a crispy fried chicken meal can make us question who we are supporting, then maybe consumption has never been just about convenience or habit. Memories live in the flavor, trust lives in the choice. And Canada is choosing again, not with loud protests, but with quiet forks and open minds. Have you ever switched your favorite spot, not because the food changed, but because you wanted to support something better? We want to hear your story, Dot. And it sits not just about 10 brands, it sits about 10 slices of a changing society, not driven by anger, but by a quiet choice, people deciding what truly deserves their support. With a cup of coffee, a pair of shoes, or even a car, and with all the dreams behind them. Maybe you never thought a cup of coffee, a pair of shoes, or a car could reflect so much. But then one day, you walk past that familiar store without stopping. You choose a different meal. You place your hand on your favorite car, then quietly put away the keys, Dot, and suddenly every small act of consumption speaks volumes. From morning coffee to the dream of university, Canadians are choosing again, not out of anger, but out of faith. And perhaps that's what makes these choices so powerful. No one forces you to boycott or stay loyal, but every decision says something about you, about the values you hold, and about the community you want to help build. If you sip ever changed your habits for a reason greater than yourself, whether for your community, your beliefs, or simply because it felt right, please share your story with us. You may not realize it, but your small story might be the spark someone else needs to start making a change. This video does not encourage boycotts, brand discrimination, or political bias. It reflects social phenomena and consumer sentiments in Canada in 2025, aiming to share information and create a space for thoughtful, respectful discussion. Thank you for watching until the very end. If this content moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next videos where we explore the world, not just with our eyes, but with our hearts. See you next time.